Call this January 12th, 2021 meeting to order. Commissioner Pfeiffer, would you lead us to the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
Morning.
First item, we have the approval of the agenda. Any corrections, updates?
Move to approve.
Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss to approve the approval of the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Kathy, we have some first
we'll
readings
do
of rezone ordinances.
First reading of ordinance 183. This is a rezone ordinance. Applicant John Kohler looking to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Mini Ag. Legal addresses lots 1 through 4, John Kohler subdivision in the southeast quarter of section 6, T123 north, R63 west of the 5th PM.
Move it.
Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Fikert. Anyone here to speak of this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have ordinance 184. This is also a rezone. Applicant Marcy Weigel looking to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Mini Ag. Legal address is Lot 1, Weigel and Locken subdivision in the northeast quarter of Section 7, T122 north, R63 west of the 5th PM.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Fikert, second by Kipley. Anyone here to speak on the issue? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have another rezone request. Applicant Marjorie Dosh looking to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Mini Ag. Legal address is Lot 1, Dosh subdivision in the northwest quarter of Section 8, T127 north, R63 west of the 5th PM.
Move it. Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Sutton. Anyone to speak on this issue? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have proposed ordinance 186, another rezone request. This is applicant Troy Malsom, looking to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Mini Ag. It is legal address Jones Outlet 1 in the north half of Section 32, T124 north, R62 west of the 5th PM.
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Fikert, second by Sutton. Anyone here to speak on the issue? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We got about 2 minutes, Kathy. You want to do a couple of your...
Yeah. Minutes from January 5th, 2021.
This is wrong on this sheet.
I'll move them.
Oh, yeah.
Second.
Moved by Fikert, second by Sutton to approve the minutes from January 5th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss to approve claims. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
HR report.
I
Move.
think we might have to keep that to the end because there's a blank in it.
Oh, yeah, we have to fill in the...
So can we
Okay.
throw that to the end?
Yep. Emergency Management Quarterly Report for Quarter 1.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Weiss to approve the emergency management quarter report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Annex chiller quote. Judy recommended awarding to the low quote of Woodman.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Fikert, second by Sutton to approve the low quote of the annex chiller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claim assignment.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Sutton to authorize chair to sign claim assignments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abatement.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Kipley to approve the abatement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Bingo permit.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Fikert, second by Sutton to authorize the bingo permit for the Elm Lake Association. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Vehicle trade-in request by sheriff.
Move.
Second.
I guess I kind of had a little bit of a question or clarification there. 3 vehicles there, and we've replaced one of them, so there were 2 extra. Is that the way that was? Because hadn't we allowed them to replace one? Anybody remember?
Yes, and I think, are they all surplus already?
They're all surplus already, so that's just,
So one of them is for that one.
And then what happens to the third one? Is that...
they're asking to trade in all 3 of
Right.
the surplus ones for the purchase of one.
Right, but my concern is that we've replaced one of the 3, and now we've got 2, so technically we're down a vehicle somewhere. I'm curious as to what the explanation is to how will that be the next one now, next week, that they're gonna want to replace that one? I don't know.
I thought we'd replaced more than one. I thought we...
Well, they had the ones back in January that they ordered, and then they
Right.
got the new pickup that they just got. I see there was some bar lights installed on it and stuff.
I think we're back at full force, I believe.
We could call her the sheriff, but I think there were some Fords that were done on the state bid. One last year and then one that came in late.
Yeah.
There was 2 of them, wasn't there? And then the pickup
That
came in.
pickup, so fleet should be back to full, I believe, but I could be wrong.
One was surplus to the planning and zoning office.
Yeah, that was
If
one.
you're missing one.
That was one of those that was done prior to the pickup showing up here.
Right.
So that was the last one we got was the pickup. There was 2 prior to that.
But that was prior to the 3 now that are being
Well, I
surplus.
think those were part of the 3 that were being replaced by the ones that were done, and they were just surplusing them. That's one that planning and zoning got one of those.
Mm,
I do not believe that was part of the 3. That was a different surplus
Right.
request.
Yep.
Oh,
Well,
Because all 3 of these are going on trade-in.
mine said Unit 1, that was the name of it.
sounds like it's clear as mud.
Sometime this month you said insurance was due, so you
Yep.
get us that list of
Yep, we're
inventory.
just wrapping up.
So that'll help
We're
us.
still waiting to get everything back from all the department heads. But yeah, we'll get you that soon as everything's in.
Okay, we had a motion.
Do you
and a
want to wait
second.
on it?
Make much difference.
Mr. Lunsman said we could give him a call if we had questions on it.
We could call them just to make sure they're full. Why don't we just,
Come back to it.
can we come back to that?
Mhm.
We'll call over Dave and just make sure that Mark can find out if they've got a full fleet.
Yeah.
Okay. So the HR and the vehicle trade-in request we'll put at the end. Next item, we have the award bid for the landfill cell for construction.
Morning.
Morning. Everything met up to the approval?
I think everything carried out, everything met.
Yeah, so they were responsive. I did check through their references because we haven't worked with them before and they haven't looked at the county before. They're out of Dickinson, North Dakota. They're a pretty big firm. They've done a lot of big DOT jobs. I talked to the DOT area engineer. He said they're good to work with. They do good work. Talked to a consulting engineer out of that area, and he said they do good work. So
Have they done landfill? Have they done landfills in the past?
they do dirt work.
Oh,
They didn't specifically landfill, but they do dirt work, and that's about all they do is site grading and dirt work, a lot of highway projects. So about the same thing.
The senior specs that know what's in.
Yeah, they know what's there. They're and so far the correspondence we've had with them, you know, they're ready to move, and I said, well, you can, you know, start doing your stuff, but you have no notice to proceed yet. So
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Piker to authorize the cell for landfill construction. What is it, Benanco?
Baranco.
Branco, Dickinson,
Brothers.
North Dakota.
Yep.
They'll be able to work this winter.
yeah,
That's the
and
plan.
that's the plan. Yeah,
What winner?
yeah, what winter this year? Then we might work out for us.
It's probably
My
gonna
name only.
be to their advantage.
We have
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Didn't want to cut you off, but
That's
we
fine.
want to leave the motion hang out.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we have a completion of for August this year. Where normally in the past we've had closer to October, but then we run into winter and it makes it tough for Mike to take it over and get started in there in the winter. So we want to get him an earlier start. So
Trying to get some on that liner.
basically they have to dig in the winter. That's how we're set up.
No, this is the one to do it.
Yeah. Gotta stay busy on it. Otherwise they'll get too much frost again. Once they start, they can't stop.
There isn't much this year, so far.
I don't know if, did you Did you send that out at all with the packets?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so they've seen that. Sounds good. And then just, is there one to sign? Did you have one? I'd love to have a copy too.
It's already signed in the packet.
Yep,
Okay.
we've got everything here.
Okay, perfect.
I guess one of the disappointments to me on that grant was the fact that I read somewhere that the county basically, to some extent, was, I don't know if you want to call it reprimanded or whatever, because we had taken money out of Mike's budget, and rather than being a 20% grant, ended up being a 10% grant, so we got penalized because
That was the comment during the grant hearing.
Yeah.
and that's disappointing.
Yeah. That was the explanation to the Board of Water and Natural Resources.
For the lower amount
Lower amount.
received.
So because we took money out of
Borrowed.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they said. They said, you know, the need isn't as great if the county can take funds from the enterprise funds, you know.
So what happens if the money is sits in the fund and we have an excess amount in our landfill? Do they look at that and say, well, you surely could have paid for it, you got an extra 2-3 million in your fund? Do they look at it that way
They
too?
do. You know, they
To a
look.
certain extent, but, you know,
Yeah.
that's not a...
Isn't it just
it's
kind
not
of the same thing?
Similar.
It
Not a-
goes
towards 10%, and they use the justification.
And it all depends on the year and who's coming, you know, because they kind of know because anyone that's applying for funds in March meeting has their applications in now. They saw those too, and they're looking at prioritizing, and they only have X dollars they have each year. So then, based on what they see coming in, they say, okay, well, we have X, and we have a request of Y, you know, who's going to get the cut, and this time you guys have the cut, it sounds like.
So considering overall what we paid in and what we've received, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sitting pretty good. We're over double than what we paid in over the last, 28 years?
Yeah. I mean, eventually it'll go the other way. You know, once we quit digging cells and we're filling above ground for 50 years, you know, you'll be paying a lot in, but you won't have as much need besides the equipment, you know, and some capping.
Somebody else will get the money.
Yep.
Yep.
And tires, and
There's always needs and requests we can make.
Very good. Thank you very much. Anybody have any other questions?
Carry on.
Dig away.
So,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I suppose the way it sounds, they're gonna have their vehicles on the road today getting down here, huh?
Yeah.
They're already there.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, they asked if they could start.
You want me to turn this off a minute? They're already
Well,
here.
the risk was on theirs.
Yeah, that was their risk.
Yeah, that's what I told them. I said, you can breathe.
Oh, we're even having trouble starting them this winter with the temperature the way it is.
Might have to run 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, they're ready to roll. So
Very good.
I would say within the next, well, we got a pre-construction meeting Thursday.
Yeah.
So after that, I'm sure they'll be starting.
All right. Good. Good luck.
All right.
Thank you.
Then,
I see Davis here. Can we just go back to vehicle trade request?
Yeah.
Can I
Davis?
prior to the same EGC.
Yep.
You're on the hot, so it's going to change stuff that they're on.
Morning, Dave.
Morning.
Just had a couple questions on the fleet of the sheriff's department. Are you at full strength as far as your vehicles? Are we going to be short vehicles now with trading 3 in? Are we all right as far as, are we going to have to order a new one now, or?
Well, we still have one more that needs to be ordered for 2021. That's a different deal, but yes, there's one more that's still in the budget for
So there
2021.
there would be another vehicle then that would be surplus besides these three?
No, this would,
That explains it for me.
This one's in anticipation of that one, which is budgeted.
correct,
Okay.
yes.
So the one that we're going to, another vehicle that we'll be purchasing this year out of this budget is one that won't be one removed to replace with another new one. There's 3 vehicles
Correct.
that are surplus, or, so, yeah, okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that was the question. We were wondering if there's going to have to be more new vehicles ordered to replace these, is what the question was, and we just wanted.
These were actually, 2 of these 3 were from the previous year, that had been held over mostly because we were not sure what to do with them because of not having a sale last year or this year. So, you know what I mean, in 2020.
Right.
Thank you. This January stuff's throwing me off. But we didn't have a sale for the county, so we didn't know how we were going to give them and get the best bang for the buck. So some of these vehicles are holdovers from the previous year.
They've been previous surplus, it's just...
They were on the
list, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
All he's doing.
Very good.
I
I think that was the only
His 2-acre house.
question we had. How many miles are on the vehicle that you're looking at trading in for?
It's,
It's all over him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's got something.
it's got a little over 100,000 on it.
That's a what year?
He just wants
It's an
to-
09.
He's already got just his house.
Okay.
Trying to find vehicles are difficult right now, especially pickups. If you, this one,
Not much inventory out there.
no, the inventory's horrible right now, and they can command a high price right now, unfortunately. It's good if you're trading in, but it's really bad if you're buying.
I think that answers the questions.
Yep.
You bet. Thanks, Dave.
All right, we had a motion and a second.
Yeah, it's not moved yet.
We had the motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Dave.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
It's interesting.
You done already?
Yeah, see, you got to get
Next item, we have Dirk Rogers, Highway Superintendent.
You got to
He
hang up
has
your
some
phone.
questions on PTO
Yeah,
policy
no doubt.
transition and discuss upcoming benefit changes.
Howdy.
Morning.
I'm gonna beat a dead horse here, and I normally don't like doing that because it's generally not productive, but I want to make sure that I share this with you, so going forward and any other future changes we got. So my two things are sort of listed as two, but they're kind of related, you know. The first thing is, and I will take the blame if I misunderstood what the objective of our the 15th of December here when we were talking about how we were going to deal with the folks that were over the 360. So when we said, Commissioner Weiss had amended that up and they included the up to 416 or I don't know what it is, 416?
416 was the old one, and then we initially had it at 320, and they moved it up to 360.
To 360. And so moving forward from that point, I was under the assumption that they weren't going to have to be below that 360, thus not maxing them out until sometime between now and July 1st. But what ended up happening is on Thursday, and we're down to, this is just two individuals that this is affecting directly in my department. Now, someone else got maxed out, but we've been managing that as we go. And that was probably the point. I didn't specify well enough is operationally what that does. And I know I can deny vacation, but I've never done that in 15 years because the way I look at that, that's part of your compensation package. Now I know I'm starting to learn that we're severing that a little more than what my philosophy is, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But what you get for working at the county in my book is a combination of things. It's your vacation and it's your sick leave and it's your insurance and it's your salary. So anyway, we got down to Friday, and when these guys, which I now understand why we were taking the overage over 360 and setting it over here separate, but their maximum was still at 360. And these guys found this out. One guy, we called him at home and said, don't come to work tomorrow because you're already going to lose 2.5 hours of vacation as it is. And if you show up tomorrow, you're going to lose 10.5 hours. So that was kind of the thing that I was trying to avoid that day, that we would have a longer time to stretch it out. Now, I'm culpable here because I misunderstood the policy and what the transition was, and maybe I heard something in my head and decided that's what it was. But as near as I can tell, the way this transition just happened, and again, it's a dead horse. We got through Friday, we switched what we were doing because we were short people, and short of these guys losing a couple hours of vacation. Okay, it's not good, but that's what happened. But by the time they made their decision on what they were going to do and contacted Erica, there was no way they weren't going to lose vacation on Friday because we were at the end of the pay period. They had to be down below 360.
Mhm.
So those are the symptoms of what happened. And the reason that I was extra frustrated, and I was very irritated when I had a one-sided conversation with Erica on Friday, and it was one-sided because of me, not because of her, is that I came up here for that specific reason, that we wouldn't have a compressed time period to have to consume this vacation. I did ask that people would have the option to use it at a later date if they didn't want to cash it out. The way that worked out, everybody cashed it out anyway, so that was kind of a moot point. But the problem was, on Friday, two guys, I had to give them a day off because that's what I believe. You guys can tell me that I'm wrong there, that's fine. And they lost, there wasn't enough room to get their vacation down low enough.
And that's what we were trying to do, and still got caught,
Right.
if you will. And as you mentioned, you try very hard to accommodate people's requests for vacation, because that's part and parcel of the way that you do that, and you make accommodations for it.
Just
But
thank
by
God
the
we
same
didn't
token,
have
you didn't want to be put in a situation where you had to tell people to take vacation.
Right.
Thank God we didn't have a raging snowstorm.
Yeah, because I got to admit, I run into a big problem there with how I feel about the way the employees should be treated and executing what we're supposed to do at the highway department. And the other thing that that this rolls into a little bit is I've reduced the workforce at the highway department by 38% since I came back the second time. And so when we start, and I can do that because I monitor the vacation. We try to anticipate when people are going to be gone. I know who's going to go hunting. I know who's going to go to Sturgis. I know who's going to want the week of the fair off. And we work around that stuff. And then when things like this come into play, and I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes and going, Jesus Christ, it's one day, Dirk, shut the hell up, quit whining, and I get that, but I hear Rachel talk about saving pennies to make dollars, and then we got dollars and we'll be able to do more stuff, and that's kind of my philosophy. The only way you can cut the workforce that much and still be moderately productive is you have to do a little bit of micromanaging of that stuff, of those other things to do your resources. And the other thing that gets a little, well, okay, so that's my comment about that. I'm not accusing anybody, and I'm sorry about the conversation Friday. I don't think I swore. I'm getting better, but I almost did. I know, but, so those are the things that get a little frustrating, because there's sort of two things to this. I care about the individual employees as their manager to a point, but boy, when it affects operations, oh man, that's a whole nother level for me, because now either our computing ability or our policies or something are restricting our ability to, go out and do work on the roads, and that's when I get frustrated. And this one had a little extra added to it because I specifically came in here to be able to address that. So,
And it only affects a very few,
Yeah.
very long-term dedicated employees.
exactly.
What was the total? 3 people
Well,
that
there's
are
two.
actually affected?
I don't know about the others.
2 there.
Two of mine.
Yeah.
Just those 2?
Just his 2 in his office, and then we had 7 total throughout the county.
Oh, that was my question, okay.
So I'm going to roll this into a couple other things, since I'm not too wound up yet, and it seems to be going okay.
Okay, your time.
Is it? Well, Lundsman took all my time.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, so, but, there's another thing that came up a while ago, and it sort of kind of, it kind of came through things and got changed and went out the other door, and I had a conversation, I believe it was with Rachel, a very short conversation, and it wasn't something that was the goal of the conversation. I probably made an offhand comment, and it was the emergency call-in pay. Now, I'm not privy to everything, okay, but I can add up a few things and come to a reasonable assumption, and somebody probably took the emergency call-in pay and used it for something that wasn't an emergency. And so the response was to cut a third of the emergency call-in pay from the highway department. So when they get called in at 2 in the morning, and they got to go out and round up some barricades and go out and barricade a road or so on and so forth, that went from automatic 3 hours to 2 hours. I tell my guys, if it's after about 2:30, just stay on the clock, go out and sit at the highway shop. You'll probably get called back for whatever it is. But that's another example. I understand. I am all for keeping stuff straight, and I'm not even against revising the policies. They've been the same way for 100 years. We better do it sometime. But we got to be aware of the transition. And I would go so far as to suggest, I don't know if department heads can hear me, they're really going to want me to drum them up more work. But when we have a dramatic policy change like this, I think all the department heads should submit a comment, a written comment of some sort. And I'm not for more government, but just saying, hey, this is my perception of how I think this specific policy is going to affect my department. And then everybody's kind of got some kind of guideline. I don't expect that you got, I don't know, how many departments are there in the county? 27, 17? I don't even know.
26.
And that's just part of the complications, because you've got some that are pretty basically 8 to 5, Monday through Friday kinds of things, and they have, you know, their own situation and issues. You know, the highway department, which, you know, you guys, summer try to work 10s, 4 10s, you know, and then overtime as need be, and then in the wintertime, you know, on a demand basis, you get the landfill that's got, you know, crazy kind of demands, and then we've got law enforcement and the rest of that stuff that's 24/7. So all of those different things, trying to have one policy that fits all of those different situations is incredibly difficult to do without, you know, isolating them a little bit more. So no, your department heads and how it affects you is incredibly important on an ongoing basis, and it's a work in progress.
Yeah, and I mean, I get all that. This is like a cautionary tale. I don't know. And to Commissioner Weiss's point right there about the difference, 11% of the county highway budget is payroll. 94% of the Register of Deeds office is payroll. I don't know these exactly, but if you start going around them, you know,
most of them.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. I mean, you could double the pay for everybody at the highway department, and the payroll's still only 20% of the whole budget. So they're really different animals when we do this. And I think you guys are getting my whiny point across. And I don't know anything about the wage study except that you guys have talked about it. And I see it's on the agenda today. But I'm assuming, back to my earlier comments, that whatever level of, and you'll probably tell us here if I would just wait and listen, I would assume benefits are considered in that. It's your whole package of compensation you're looking at. I would assume the ones I've been involved in other places, nobody's pay got reduced or lost things. I can see the benefits and stuff getting modified over the years. So I would assume that. And then my last question, if we do a funding study and everybody's wages got to come up, going back to my previous comment about the percent of payroll in these other departments and the percent of payroll in the highway department, I'm guessing the highway department's going to be funding the raises for the rest of them, to some extent. I mean, I'm being a little dramatic and facetious here, okay? But
not really.
But you understand my point a little bit.
I'll help out, Dirk.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Oh, yeah, and you will. I'm sorry.
Your material budget is the only huge variable that's in the budget.
I know that.
And it's frustrating.
I know that. And do you know how many other departments you had to close down in order to come up with the $3.5 million that you took from the highway department last year? Or
maybe we should move on to my appointment.
Yeah. So, okay, but
address this issue.
that's my thing. And I just, you know.
So my question is then, did the issue from last Friday get resolved when the numbers got taken care of? I understand the emergency, if I'm correct or understanding right, you don't quite agree with the way the emergency call was made. But did the 320 to up to 360 get that resolved with those people? I mean, as far as, I realize there was confusion for that day, but is it going to be a little, is it leveled out or is it not?
It's and again, you can decide how big of an impact this is, okay? Individually, they're done being impacted. They lost their 2.5 hours on Friday or this week or however that accounting comes out. So individually, they're done.
It can't happen again.
Yeah, they're done being impacted. The problem I have now, which is what I normally manage, is by taking that maximum from up here and moving it down here, you've included a whole bunch more people that are right up against the maximum. So my problem with the 360 and it being on last Friday is right back to the original argument. The problem I have now is operational. These guys are maxed out. These two guys I'm talking about have to take 10.5 hours of vacation off this week. Luckily, one of them.
So you're going to have more guys asking for a vacation.
Right, and they're going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully I won't end up having to hire more people back. I intend to hire a mechanic, but I was gonna try to get through another year and see what the funding situation in '22 is, with our non-COVID. Or if there's more money next year, we don't, you know, nobody knows what's gonna happen, so.
And it is a much different creature. I mean, I worked for a utility for 38 years, and there were literally people that had a year's worth of vacation accumulated.
Oh, yeah.
When they retired, that just for a year continued to stay on the payroll, and that just, you know, conceptually and practically just doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's been a move, and we're behind the curve on that, to where you accumulate vacation, but you only accumulate so much, and whether it's right, wrong, or different, it's the real thing. But if you've got all this vacation that's available to you and you use none of it, you know, the situation is now, from a practical standpoint, is you get so much vacation and a little bit of leeway, but if you've got carryover, you get till May, June, July to use that carryover, and you are given opportunities to use it, and if you choose not to, and the dedication of showing up every day is appreciated, but that's part of your benefit package, but it's also part of your responsibility to take advantage of it.
Right.
And the reality in most of the world now is, you know, you've got this carryover period, but take it or lose it.
Yep.
And I'm not saying right or wrong, but that's the competitive marketplace, and so to pull that back, but to accumulate, you know, months of vacation and never use any of it's just not practical anymore. So trying to pull back from that and do it equitably and fairly is what we were trying to do, but, you know, some of this has got to get used up and keep it, you know, within a reasonable level, and what that is open for discussion.
Yep. No, and I'm just talking about the impacts of it.
Right.
I mean, I'm aware what trends are. I know our system's antiquated. You know, so looking at the Federal Civil Service.
Yeah, and it's especially frustrating when it impacts people that have been around for a long time that are proven to be just incredibly dedicated.
So do you have any suggestion as to how any of this can be solved? I mean, what do we do to fix your problem?
Well, I'll probably get my problem fixed in the next few weeks. We'll just, you know, one of these guys who was going to go to a funeral Wednesday, I go, why don't you take Thursday and Friday off too? Because Monday's a holiday, this would be a good opportunity. Didn't tell him he had to, threw it out there, go, hey, we'll work around it. But guess what? I know Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that guy's gone. You know, I'm not going to find out Thursday night that he's not going to be there Friday. So, and we're flexible, we can move stuff around, but
he's going to come back Monday and say, I don't want to take days off.
Yeah,
come to work.
That's usually what happens. But the way it is now, we can. I don't want to go back and change anything now. Some guys are gonna take off a little more time, so that usually what ends up happening, most guys have a thing they're gonna do. Like I said, the fair, hunt, and Sturgis, they all have something that they do, and they usually do it annually. When they get maxed out, then what they do is they'll take a day here, a day there, until they get to their planned 2 or 3 weeks off, and then, you know, and you know, I want to be careful. I realize these guys, yes, you get a lot of vacation. I can't even imagine our good troll friends on the American News website. They'll be commenting about lazy ass highway department guys get free stuff and they're overpaid and they sleep all day and all that stuff, you know. But I'm for changing it, that's fine, but I just want us to be a little, and it's not even a transparency thing, it's an education thing about how it's going to affect all those involved. So, wow, I went way over, but...
Feel better now?
I do feel a lot better, yeah.
You don't look any better.
Well, I was really, really upset this morning still, but then I was sent some potential problems we're going to have with some legislative bills for the counties, and that distracted me long enough that I was actually happy when I got up here. So, and that's another side note. And I don't know if I'm supposed to give you a department update now. If anybody has anything they wanted to tell me or ask me, but there are a few things, and I don't have enough detail and don't know what I can talk about and what I can't talk about yet on some legislation. But there's some that is pretty dramatically has potential to dramatically impact us, and unfortunately, some of it might even divide the counties up. I mean, we're going to have some of us on this side of the line and some of us on that side of the line, and how the hell that's productive, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. So
Well, it needs to be said that we do understand and appreciate the dedication and the hard work ethic of all of the employees, your department and all the other departments of the people that work for the county. As we work through all of these details and try and be as accommodating as we possibly can.
Yep.
Well, I think we kind of suspected that when, and I mean, we needed to recognize the fact that when the policy changes were made, that there would be some things that would show up that you just pretty hard to plan for. I mean, you just about can't make that many big policy changes and not run into a snag somewhere along the line that we didn't. I mean, nobody pinned it down that it was going to happen, and you got it.
And normally this is the first. I mean, I remember being involved with personnel, and I don't mean the individuals, I mean policy, one other time, ever, and that was when we were negotiating to switch how we were calculating vacation, where, you know, guys used to be able to take vacation for 40 hours and come in on Friday and get 10 hours overtime. That's the last time I've ever talked about any personnel policy, but I with the union not, you know, I have no idea what the status of that is in real, I mean, for reality, not just on paper.
And in all honesty, I mean, employees, you're going to have employees that probably wouldn't, they'd give the county, I've been here 25, 30 years, the county can have a day, they don't care. And then you're going to have, so you got your personalities involved here too. You got people that absolutely watch it to the, absolutely fine tune it, and they're going to take every advantage they possibly can to use the system. And that, I mean, you're going to deal with that. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's...
Well, I don't think the commission would never intentionally want to hurt the employees, but we couldn't continue on the way we were going with 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 hours of sick leave and vacation. I mean, it was ludicrous what some of those numbers were. So some point in time after, like you said, decades, you have to change your policy. Do you get it right when you do it? Well, we probably got it 90% right, but I mean, it's always tough to make a change when you've got 20 and 30-year employees and you've got the new employees. Where's the fine line of making this right versus that right? It's a hard line to figure out how to design something like that.
No, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we're I won't use the word socialist, but we're okay, if a guy starts at the highway department tomorrow, I don't even know what he would make, like $18.50, $18.60 plus a benefit package. I got a guy that's worked there for 43 years, and he makes 21 something. He makes $3 more an hour for 43 years, and that's okay because his 43 years, that's what the system has been that way. But kind of to your point, we're not very stratified on anything. I mean, you're new, and then you're between new and old for about 20 years, and then there might be another little thing on the top, and we have that with a lot of our policies. I don't know why it's that way, and these aren't things that I'm saying we're done wrong now or anything like that. It's just, I don't know if it's the old philosophy on the way things were set up, you know. Spink County Highway, everybody makes the same amount of money. Your base pay is exactly the same whether you work there 100 years or work there 10. And then they get a longevity nickel a year or something every month. Now I think they only do payroll down there once a month.
Well, that was part of the philosophy, because there used to be a long step. I mean, it took 10 years, 15 years to actually get. And I remember having the conversation that, you know, if you're qualified to do the job, you should hire qualified people.
Sure.
You know, and within a reasonable amount of time as a new hire, if you're performing the job, you should be compensated for it. And if you're being compensated for it, you should be able to perform the job. And then you have some accommodations for the longevity. But if you're doing the same job, there ought to be some kind of a correlation in being compensated, as opposed to, I got to be here 10 years before I get paid to do what I'm doing.
Right.
So it's a tough balance, and
I'm not discounting that anything, and that we should have been able to just go, there it is, you know. But anyway,
That person that had 43 years probably started at $2.50 an hour, and over the years, minimum wage increases
Yep.
and so forth, that's
Yep.
where you get to where you're at today.
And his blade didn't have a cab on it either, so.
And that horse he went to work on
Yeah,
is gone.
right, and he probably, the benefit thing was completely different, and I don't know if we had state retirement in the 70s or whatever, you know,
Wow.
it's all different, so, okay, that's my bit. Anything else?
No snow.
Thank you. Somebody asked me about how much it cost to plow snow once. Was it one of you two? Did you ask me? It was like, I looked it up somebody asked me how much it costs to go out on a normal snow. It's about $15,000. If it's something we can do in one day, it's about $16,000 to plow snow. That's not a lot of wind. Yeah, that's everything. That's one pass, one day of a normal snowfall. I think the city is substantially more than that.
Well, I think we need to get prepared for a fuel increase too, because I don't think there's any question that the gas and diesel fuel gonna go.
Yeah, right now you're moving
We're heading
material
for it.
and getting ready.
Yeah, when do we take bids on fuel, on diesel fuel, or did we already?
We just buy off
Yep.
the state bid.
Oh, okay.
We just buy the
But she's gonna go.
the margin. You think it's gonna go up? I'm pretty sure it is.
Don't forget your phone.
So you can have it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Derek.
Derek.
Hey, no.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Next item, we have Kathy McNichol, County Auditor, CARES Act update.
I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the CARES Act. What we were able to reimburse was salaries and wages for our public safety department. So we reimbursed, our jail, our JDC, our sheriff, emergency management, court security, the 911 center. And as of right now, we have received $4.1 million from the CARES Act. We have a few more items to button up with the year-end payroll, but it'll be sitting around $4.1 million. So, and with these funds, you guys can do with them as you please. If you want to restrict them for certain projects, you're more than welcome to. As of right now, they're just sitting in the bank account since we've just received them in the last month or two.
Do we have a deadline where we've got to dictate where they go? Or is it?
No.
They'll just sit in general?
Yeah, we'll just set in surplus cash, yep.
Very good.
Now, not all of it is in the general fund, I should clarify. Emergency management, their salaries and wages go into the emergency management fund because we backed out of their cost share grant. There was a tiny bit, $1,800 in the highway fund. We were reimbursing some of that FFCRA leave. You got your 80 hours of COVID leave given to you by the county. So some of that went into special revenue funds if they had an employee. That was out. And then we also got $753,000 for the 911 fund, and that will stay within that fund. So right now, the general fund has 3.3 of the CARES Act.
Because we split the cost of the city on the 911
Yep.
center, did any of the city receive funds go into that fund also?
What we ended up doing was, this is above our allocation.
Uh-huh.
So since we hold the payroll here,
Yep.
we just submitted for 100% of the payroll over allocation,
Okay.
and then 100% of it's in the fund, so we can just draw down 50/50 instead of going through the hassle of dividing up the contract in each entity.
So they didn't
reimbursing.
submit any on their end, probably?
No, we just did
Okay.
100%, we'll just put it
Okay,
into the fund.
okay, thanks.
So how, and I think maybe you brought this up maybe last week or the week before, is that gonna affect, as far as the 40%, max?
We should be okay. We're gonna calculate that once we have all our year-end adjustments done. We'll do a second calculation on the surplus cash.
It is 40%.
Yeah, we can hold up to 40%.
Right.
And then if you're over 40, you have to assign it to spend it.
But I wondered if the state was gonna make any concessions for that, as far as because of the CARES Act money that might push
I had
some of
not-
the counties over 40%.
I don't think so at that point you'd wanna, I think, like for us, we have projects we would like to do and you just assign it at that point. Yeah.
You wouldn't think they'd penalize us for receiving those funds, who knows?
And I don't even think having to spend it would be a penalty. It would just be, we have future building expenses, you could assign it for future grandstand, for whatever your needs would be.
I did see one of the counties that were over their 40%, but they just designated some money to a project to get under that 40%.
Yeah, and some counties have decided to give a little stipend to every employee, like $1,000, $2,000, just thanking them for their hard work. during COVID. So, you know, every county's been treating it a little differently.
Any other questions in regards to the CARES Act funds?
Thank you for staying on top of that.
Yes, payroll spreadsheets weren't, they were complicated, but we got it done.
Good news.
Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring some sunshine today.
Yeah.
I thought you would take what I had to say. Your highway budget should look good next year.
Yeah. Nice, somebody can print money.
Yeah, I know she
Next item, we have Erica Kaufman, HR Director, wage study.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm coming to you guys. I put the wage study in my budget. It was declined, and so I've been in contact with some of the department heads, and they asked the status of it. I told them what the status was, and I said that I would be willing to come to you guys and say, hey, if the department heads were willing to contribute some money to pay for the wage study, would you guys be willing to have a wage study done? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm asking if that's an option, would you allow a wage study to be done if the departments were willing to contribute into it?
Remind us the cost.
The cost for the wage study was $37,500. And if I divide, well, I took $38,000, just divided it roughly by 17 departments, and it comes out to just around $2,200 for each department. Now some of the departments are larger, so I'd have a conversations with them to see if they would want to contribute a little bit more since they're a larger department versus the 1 or 2 people department, and that would be up to them.
Did all 17 of those departments feel they could absorb that increase of $2,200?
I did talk to all 17, but the ones that I did talk to, yes, they did feel that they could absorb that.
Yeah.
So are there different companies that do wage studies? I mean, is there any requirement as far as who we pick or select to do that?
We would have to do our 3 bids or our RFP for it. And I did...
Professional services, so.
Correct. And when I did get the last quote from one of the entities that has done quite a few in South Dakota here, it gave me a good idea of what's out there and what can be done in these wage studies. And one of it, with this specific provider, they had a year's contract out there with them after they completed the wage study. So if we had any questions, concerns, they would assist us with those questions and concerns. What I just passed out to you guys was what the Sheriff's Department asked me to pass out to you on where the Sheriff's salary is and where the Chief Deputy salary is at. So I just wanted to pass that out.
You know, the wage studies probably very much needed. So, okay, the wage study comes back and says, okay, we need to pay the sheriff more, we need to pay this more. Well, the county's going to get X amount of dollars we have for the last 10 years. Our budget is capped. We get taxpayers' dollars. We don't have an abundance of fun except when the CARES Act money comes in, which is kind of a gift from heaven. So where's the money going to go to, or where's it going to come from? Well, I think Dirk hit it right on the head. If you're going to put another $1 million out in salaries, you're going to take $1 million out of the highway. That's what it's going to boil down to. I mean, when your budget is 28 to 31 million every year in the county, everything keeps going up. We have no place to get extra money from the county. I mean, it's not like I think the commission's overspending.
I have a question on that. Looking at this that was presented for the sheriff's salary, how do the other counties that are bound by the same budget restrictions make these salaries work and we can't? That's my question to the commission.
Well, I think a lot of it you probably have to make all comparisons in all the departments, because I'm just dead sure that some of those counties with their highway department budget probably doesn't even begin to touch what ours is. I think you'd have to compare.
Yeah, I just think there's more analysis that needs to be done if other counties seem to make fair wages work.
And that's something the wage study does supply, is they'll provide Brown County with 3 implementation plans showing a relative impact of different funding levels on the compensation plan. So they'll give us a different way to implement that on a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 4-year plan.
I mean, we've got a pretty extensive, very extensive planning and zoning department, which a lot of it, how many counties go to the extent that our planning and zoning department goes through, and for that matter, the registered deed, or the director of equalization office too. I mean, you gotta compare each department and what the budgets are, I think, but.
Well, in the overall situation too, I mean, if you look at the mill levies, when they were capped, Brown County's is incredibly low compared to others. So the available resources overall, I mean, this number is the budget for the sheriff's office in these particular counties, which is an important figure to keep in mind. But, you know, considering, like you said, the vast responsibility that we have, our highway department budget has been way below what it should be for decades, as well as, you know, our funding for a lot of other things. So it's a difficult thing for us to do, and not having the flexibility to increase that mill levy when, you know, some of the other entities that do take advantage of it have not over those decades has really kept us in a difficult situation.
And then another thing that the bigger counties have got to face, I had a little visit with Kathy this morning. I know that the county's responsibility direct for TIF financing is about $940,000. We really don't have a number out of the city as to what that number is, so we're already giving up or waiting for. I mean, we know that for the county it's $950,000 that we're waiting for, and
We know how much we're waiting for total.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they are falling off, but.
Yeah, I can grab that.
And I mean, there's a lot of the counties don't have that. The smaller counties, there's probably 10 counties that deal with that too, is another issue. I mean, if we had that well over $1 million, it would help out a bunch.
I think that's an important component, is, you know, not only what your target is, but also paths to get there practically. And you know, Dirk had mentioned it, you know, there may be a freeze on some people's salaries
That's the taxable
in certain
value.
situations in
It's
order
not
for
the
others
dollars
to get
that
caught up to
apply
where they need to be in relationship to that. And that's part of the
And then there's
process
a constant
with that.
goal, because some of these
And if
get
we're gonna
paid
use the
off
highway,
and
for example.
some of the
Dirk
regulars.
has-
The answer here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dirk has a
True.
tough time, and Mike also, he's not even here anymore, have a hard time hiring those heavy equipment operators because they have to compete with the private sector
Right.
and the construction companies.
That's a huge component of that, for
Correct.
specialized positions, absolutely.
And so with this specific survey, they include up to 25 organizations and 40 benchmark positions. And they can do a comparison with private and public and then work with them together.
And it's got a comment about, and it's more, you gotta kind of be committed. Again, this is just my experience, because I've worked 2 places that had pretty dramatic shifts in the salaries. I benefited a lot. Some other folks didn't. And, but it's a little bit like testing material. Like if you test some asphalt, you're gonna go through the process of testing it, or we're gonna go through the process of testing our compensation versus other places. We got to be prepared to
React.
Yeah, and you know, we got in a heck of a fight with those guys, but I'm like, why are we testing the asphalt? And so that when we get done, we can go, well, this here was bad, we know that, let's move on. No, you got to, if you're going to go through the effort to do an evaluation, you're going to have to be really cautious if you decide not to implement the results of what the evaluation says. Because you might just be setting yourself up, and now everybody, I'll be in here in another month going, well, Jesus, they said we should make more money, but you guys didn't raise it up. Why not? You know, that's the only thing I would say about that. You're sort of in for a dime and in for a dollar once you start. Again, just my opinion, but I have been through a couple of them other places.
Yeah.
Each department's got an extra $2,000, maybe we just put that
Well,
Get
and
one
we have
load of
a
gravel
little
and drive it
money.
down the
No,
street.
That'd be a one-time thing. It's not like these ongoing salaries can be raised going forward forever. You know, a bonus is one thing, $1,000 for an employee or something, but I'm with you. I don't see doing it unless there's somewhere that we can tap into those resources to make it happen. So I'd like to see at least 2 or 3 that are overpaid. Where are we gonna take it from? Are we gonna find that there's a couple positions that are making more than what they comparably in order to bring up some of the others that aren't? I just don't know where we're gonna find that.
One thing I'd like to see, and I'm not in favor of taking action on this today, but I appreciate you bringing it back up, is examples of the implementation program that they've suggested for other clients.
Okay.
I would like to see a couple of those, just to kind of get an idea
What our options
of
are.
what the potential roadmap is for implementation, because you're right, that's a serious component of this, is you can do the study and put it on the shelf, and then everybody's mad that you wasted the money and you didn't do anything about it. I would like to have a better understanding of what some of the suggestions on how you implement it equitably that have been suggested by some of these folks, and not a ton of them, but 2 or 3, if you would.
Both of the places that I'm familiar with or where I experienced this were funded primarily by sales tax, and that's a little easier.
Well, that's the nice thing about sales tax, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because you don't have to increase the tax in order to increase the revenue stream.
Sure.
As long as the economy's good and expanding, you can have the same tax levy and continue to generate quite a bit more money. Whereas if you're fixed with, property tax and things like we are, without
Well, then
adjusting
why-
the mill levy, and all you're taking is just the growth, that's basically gobbled back up by CPI.
And why aren't sales tax responsible for servicing tips? Why does it have to be the county's property tax dollars?
It's property. Then make it right.
Go to Pier, get it straightened out. I tried for 8 years.
That doesn't solve our problem right now.
Well, it might be a start.
Yeah, well,
You want $1 million+ extra? It might be a start.
Gotta get it done first.
Well,
That's
go
the
to work.
problem.
Go to work. I didn't see you down there helping me when I had the bill.
So I'm not against it, but I would like to see some more information, just so I got a better understanding if we go down that path, which I'm not opposed to, how we're going to implement it and do it fairly and equitably.
Okay, I can do that.
Thanks for all your work on that.
Anything else? You guys want information on?
And I don't mean to stall it, but
No, you're good.
it's a big decision, and you need to be involved in the whole way.
I was working at the city when they did their first wage study, and the people that were doing that, we had to go through writing down all of our hats that
Responsibility.
we wore from each, like in our department, and then we went through an actual personal interview with the people, and they got a feel for what all we did in our department, if you wore 7 or 8 different hats and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because you can have a job title, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it means the same thing as a
Right.
different organization.
Yeah, because like the building official, we basically had 6 departments. And if you just took building official and building inspector to compare, that really wasn't a fair comparison based on the amount of work.
Well, when we can't come up with the money to really do the highway department funding the way it needs to be, I don't see where in God's earth we come up with the money to do, as much as a wage study is very, very important, I don't see where the money's gonna come from, other than it end up coming out of the highway budget. That's where it comes every time.
Well, unless there's a good year at the landfill, we can get that first, and then we'll move over to the highway
Then
department.
it screws up our grant.
Oh, that's right.
In one side, out the other.
Gotta manage it.
Well, and that's the problem. Dirk hit it right on the head. You do the wage study, and it says that this person's supposed to get paid $3,000 more a year. You're going to start a riot, because everybody's going to wonder why we're not doing it. Well, I don't think, out of our employees, I don't think they realize that our budget is capped. I mean, we don't have access to say, well, we're going to get an extra $5 million for 2021, and we're going to get $7 million for 2022. We're going to work on the same damn budget we've been working on for the last how many years? Oh, we get this little increase. One year was, CPI was 0. Well, what did that do for the county? We get no access to raising our funds. I mean, it's impossible. So we're stagnant. So yeah, it'd be great. I mean, I don't want to abuse the employees, but do they want us to spend until the roads are broke up and the highway department's gone to $2 million budget? Because I mean, that's where we'll go if we end up there. It's going to have to come from someplace. The legislators aren't going to do anything for us the way it appears.
And just from what I'm hearing from some of the department heads is the quality of applicants they're getting. they're losing their employees to other entities that are paying more, and our quality of applicants aren't there. They can't do the jobs that are required.
We need to stay competitive in the marketplace. We need to figure out how to do that. So no, I appreciate you bringing that back up. I would like a little more information on how it is that we would try and implement this going forward before we take that step. But keep the conversation going.
Okay, I can do that.
When was the last wage study that the city did? Do you have any idea?
They've done like 3 or 4.
I will tell you that because I have them in here as a reference because it was Condrey and Associates that did them. They did, their last one was in 2016, so they completed the classifications and a pay system for the city of Aberdeen in 2007 and an update of their system in 2016.
That's what I recall.
But what was their sales tax increase this last year? 27%, 28% or something?
That I don't know.
Huge.
It was up significantly.
Huge.
And then Pierre also uses them, the city of Pierre does. Their last one was done in 2017. The city of Bismarck uses it. Walton County government, but that one's in Georgia, so I don't care about them necessarily. And then one in Iowa. And then
All the while, they hold up the county's property tax dollars for tips.
But yeah, in South Dakota, they've done the city of Aberdeen, the city of Pierre, Minnehaha, and Pennington County, city of Madison, city of Mitchell, city of Rapid City, and city of Spearfish.
So at the end of the day, they give you a list and says, these are the low columns, these are where you should be, and these are the high.
And that's, I mean, that's where we could do that low, median, and high, or we could have them break it out to a step schedule out to 50 years, like some companies have. It all depends on what we want them to do.
So included in that 37.5, they would take our steps and they would recreate them for us
They would redo them completely.
as part of this.
Yeah.
It's all in that?
Yeah.
And make implementation recommendations. That's the part I would like to see what they've recommended in a couple of these instances before we make that commitment.
Okay, and I can send this document. This is the old contract that they just typed out, sent it to me, just saying here it is. If you want to move on it, go ahead. If not, they just put an expiration date on it, but I can send it out to you so you guys can look through it and read it. As to what they do and how they walk through everything, have each phase broken down. Phase 1 is developing, phase 2 is the analysis, phase 3 is the job evaluation, phase 4 is developing the compensation structure, phase 5 is developing a pay plan, and then phase 6 is the implementation and the administration of the program.
Can you reach out to Minnehaha and Pennington and see as a result of that wage study what action they took or how they reacted?
Okay.
And give us an idea.
Well, there again, you have to, like the county, or the Minnehaha County Highway Department is funded by wheel tax and doesn't use any of the county's property tax dollars, so you've got a significantly different situation there as far as funding too. And are there any companies out there that do nationwide, that maybe through the National Association of County Commissioners, contact them to find out whether there's any studies that are done as to how a county our size and with the situation we've got with funding, what kind of things and what approach might be taken to try to increase the revenues that the county, that our county gets with the population we've got, with the tax base we've got, and those kinds of things, because I think I forget how many counties, I think there's right at 1,000 counties that are involved in the National Association of County Commissioners, and whether or not there's a company out there that might shed some light on what we as a county in our situation might do.
The one thing I'll say about that specifically is this is about as hybrid of a situation. Counties that are this big, nationwide or bigger, are way more rural. And there are some counties, most of them east of us, that would have similar population or similar land use, primarily being crops rather than pasture. You get over into Indiana and Iowa, but they're geographically about half the size of Brown County.
So, I mean, I'm all for where you're coming from there, but the largest county in Iowa with that has similar population to Brown County is a third of the size of Brown County. And Brown County is like the 11th or 14th largest, you know, in area. So what I'm getting at, it's the same reason why we have the most miles of open roads in any county in the state at 2,900, because we're very unique. We have a combination of population and very productive farmland. And when you get east of here, the counties are not geographically this large. So to try to find an absolute apples to apples, you know, it gets tough, and it gets even tougher when you're just looking at the ones in South Dakota. The ones that are very similar to us have I-29 running through the middle of them, which completely skews the impact of your county highway department.
But I'm thinking of that even in regards to an approach to committee hearings in Pierre and all those kinds of things, any kind of data that the county, and I mean, with our 66 counties in South Dakota too are so different. I mean, even at all the lines of what you're saying, I mean...
Yeah. It's just another, and God, we're getting way out in the weeds here, but it's similar to when we're talking about trying to come up with a policy that's equitable for 17 departments that all function completely differently, you know, and it's the same thing. Whatever.
Yeah, I hear you.
Brown County is very unique, and from my involvement with you don't have, you know, most counties don't have anywhere near this much asphalt either. That's another thing, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that makes it unique.
That's why we can't afford them.
And I'm not against the employees, and I'm not against giving them more money either, but...
We could start charging for right-of-way.
Because we are so unique.
Yeah. We should raise our overweight permits. That's another thing.
We took some adjustments to planning and zoning not too long ago that were appropriate.
But it's like getting extra pens at the trade show, because you're going to save a whole bunch of money on office supplies. I mean, it would be great and it would help, but it's not that impactful.
Yeah.
Okay. Erica, you're going to follow up with that?
All right.
Okay.
Sales.
Roberta?
I just stepped in because I would like to make a comment from the employee side of it.
Just a second, Ken.
I understand that the county's budget is maxed out. Guess what? Our employees' personal budgets are maxed out too. And we are not even giving them a raise to match the cost of living raise every year. We have employees who are looking for other opportunities and taking second jobs because they're not being compensated enough to make a go of it. And it's sad, but it's true. So even though the county is in a budget pickle, our employees are in a budget pickle as well. And I'm not suggesting that we take the money from Dirk. I can't tell you where to get the money from, but I just would like you to also think of it from the employee's perspective. So not only are we not getting quality applicants for positions that are open, but what are we going to do when we start losing these experienced people and we don't get decent applicants to hire, and the cost of training is astronomical. So I just wanted to plant that little seed in your minds as well.
Ken?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yep. Well, so, and I've been kind of watching the meeting and listening a little bit too, and, you know, from my standpoint, just so everybody's aware of what I've been dealing with here, so, you know, I've been fighting with one of our larger manufacturing industries in town, okay? Well, they offer 3 shifts, and the pay is substantially better, and, you know, I've lost 2 senior staff members to this place. And I asked them, I said, so what's the reasoning? They said, well, more money, and one, I don't have to sit here and juggle somebody's wives in my hand, honestly, and that's what they both said. So, you know, I totally, and I totally understand where Dennis, you know, Commissioner Feiger was saying about, you know, the funding and how strapped things are, but at some point, we got to try and get ourselves in the ballpark. For me, if I lose, you know, all of a sudden I lose both of these staff members within the same month, And to replace them, it's 3 months just for them to get through the training, and for them to actually be a contributor and a main contributor, it's another year. So I have to try and be really strategic on what we're doing here too. And you know, and they have a valid point when they can walk over there, and you know, their increase is, you know, starting at $22, $23 an hour, starting, and they have really all they do is clock in and run a forklift around or man a machine. You know, so it's a very, I don't envy any of you guys trying to figure this out, because it's a very tough decision to make. But I just kind of wanted to just give you that little piece of it that I have experienced personally within the last 6 months. So that was just my piece of it for you.
Okay, thanks, Kent. Well, Erica, follow up on that, and we won't make a decision today, but I don't think anybody's saying we don't want to do it, but we better be prepared that if we do it, we have to react on it, because it'll be a moot point if we don't.
Has the county ever done a wage study?
Many, many years ago, but I cannot find the paperwork for it. I think that's how the steps got implemented, but I don't know when that was
God, I
done.
should know, I've been around here 30 years.
I would venture we could put a challenge to administrative department heads to cut your budget 5% to accommodate a 5% increase. I bet if you put forth that challenge, most everybody could find some efficiencies, knowing it would be benefiting their staff and improving the quality of the employees here. I would take that challenge on myself to cut 5%, if it meant my staff could get a 5% raise. They'd forego the standing desk or the extra copier paper in exchange for the raise, 100%.
Then they couldn't contribute to the wage study, though.
If we were going to do a wage study, we just did a 5% raise instead. I would challenge that to department heads to find the 5%.
I don't know
I
that
would be willing to do
5% would
both.
pay for it though in these departments.
Yeah.
That's not gonna
So
pay for it.
It may be easier in an administrative department than...
Dirk's department, it would pay for it, but here it's not.
Well, then the thing of it is, too, I'm a little bit concerned about the long-term effects of that 2 or 3 years down the road, whether that could have an impact as to, you know, another one of them things that you don't think about and all of a sudden hits you in the face, and there you are.
I'm just afraid the county is going to get so far behind the 8 ball that when we have to do a wage study and we have to implement those raises or increases to keep our employees, it's going to cost a lot more than slowly doing it right now.
The pain will be bigger.
Yeah.
We're behind already.
So yes, I will go out, I will do my research, I will send you guys some emails on what I find out.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you, Erica.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good luck.
We have, back to the HR. Anybody else have anything in regards to that? Before we move on?
Stay here for the HR report.
HR, we have a motion and a second, but we have a discussion.
No, there's actually no motion or second.
Okay.
I need to go on exec
Use
now.
it.
But you want to take public comment? Before we hang up?
I guess we'll do the personnel and exec, or the HR director for exec. Any public comment to come before the commission today? I would entertain a motion to go into exec.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kipling,
personnel.
second by Sutton to go into exec for personnel and the HR director.
And contracts.
I need
And
to
contract.
Hang this up.
Yep.
Yep.
New Dennis. I mean, looking down the road, and I know it's 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it's going to be. You know, we've got the soybean plant that we will realize a significant influx of property tax once that 5 years is up. And the beef plant, I mean, I think it's 2026, if I remember right.
I think it's 2026, 2027.
Right in there,
Mid-20s,
which will help. I mean, so looking forward, those are a couple opportunities for a fairly significant increase in revenue that we have to look forward to.
But does that match the increase in what the salaries might be and replacing motor graders and doing all those things?
I'm not saying it does, I'm just saying that is a source of additional revenue that we've been looking for. So it's at least
somewhat of a light at the end of the tunnel for us to look forward to.
But at the same time...
And I have no idea until the wage study is done what the impact of the increases are going to be, but those are a couple things that we at least have to look forward to.
Yeah, but there doesn't make up for the waiting that we had.
Totally agree.
I mean, we wouldn't be where we're at now if we had that million plus for the last 4, 5, or 6 years that we've waited for that money. I mean, it'll be there. There's no question, but it's not going to make up the difference of what we've waited for on these tips that are handed out there for corporate welfare.
I agree. I'm just pointing out there is something.
These wage studies, you can get all the pertinent information from Brookings, Hughes, what they pay their blade operators. That's all information that we'd be able to get a hold of, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Association of County Commissioners has a study that people voluntarily put that information into.
Now, are they conforming? That's the thing, is, are their job descriptions similar? That's the big thing about it, because they may call them blade operators, but they may do other things also. So I know, like, right now, even our blade operators who have a CDL who can drive the trains, they get an additional 80 cents for driving trains. So it just depends on what that job description is.
Right. It'll be a little more generic, you know, rather than precisely what the job description, but at least it'll give you some idea of the range.
Yep, correct.
Well, and then we didn't even bring up the issue or the subject of the Sheriff's Department and the jail and the issue that they have over there in replacing the resignations that they deal with almost weekly, sometimes 2 or 3 a week. And, you know, that's huge too.
You know, everybody that works here is aware that the wages are underpaid, but they're here because they like to be here. They want to show up every day. Everybody does a great job regardless of what they're paid, and they take pride in being a county employee, and I don't always say that either, that, you know, you're here, it's not for the money, it's because you're prideful to work here. You generally enjoy, you know, coming here every day with your coworkers and enjoy serving the public. I know that's the case, like in my office, we generally enjoy coming to work here every day.
Well, the thing that we need to keep in mind is the fact that these people are all professionals too. I mean, they're not somebody that we're making work because work off of welfare payments or something like that. These people, which may have been something back 40, 50 years ago, that the county employees were, you know, someone that was maybe paying off a lien or paying off a welfare debt. Well, that's different today. Today, these people are professional people. I mean, they're not, you know, they can go someplace else and get a job too.
I do agree with you. I think each department probably has the ability to lower their expenses to give their employees a raise. I think that's, because, you know, when you look at the budget at the end of the year, there's departments that have overreach. And there's things probably that they could have got by with a year or two without that they get now. There's probably is room for, but, you know, maybe as a commission, if we're not aware of that these department heads have that, it'd be a foolish thing for us to do to say, well, we're going to give everybody a 7% raise. Because where do we find that 7% if we don't cut something else?
Yeah, it would be a challenge I would put forth to find efficiencies, find improvements if you want these raises. Can you change some of your process to make it work within your budget? Can you do something to reduce your expenses, do something differently that causes you to reduce expenses? I think Chief Deputy Lunsman is a great example of that, of the improvements he and Mark have been doing over at the jail to cut costs. They turned over a significant amount of money in the jail this year, and it's because of, you know, the unique approaches he's bringing and the drive he has to find ways to reduce those expenses.
Well, I think that methodology, though, also punishes those that have already done a good job. They're bare bones right now. Where are they going to find 7%? And they've done it right.
That's true. Like, our museum's already done an excellent job of that, yeah.
But, yeah, definitely worth the conversation.
Okay, so since somebody brought up welfare, I have a question, and I've been meaning to ask this for a couple weeks now, and you triggered my mind. If Roxy were to be out for an extended period of time, how would you guys cover her office? She asked me that around Christmas. Great.
Welcome to welfare.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's what we've done in the past when she couldn't for just a short period of time, is forward the phones to some other department just to take messages. But
okay.
There's no way that Chris...
I don't think so. He's pretty much just scanning right now.
Pretty sharp.
But
he's pretty sharp.
I know her concern was when she was gone over that Christmas break was the funeral homes calling her and what to do with those, this is the indigent deaths that the funeral homes deal with, and if somebody needs to be paid for or whatever. So what she did is she just sent an email out to the funeral home saying, hey, I'm gone on Christmas break. If it's an emergency, here's my cell phone, call me. But if she's out, say, 6 months or 3 months for a knee surgery, what are we going to do in that place? Because we can pay the bills, we can get all that stuff done, but when it comes to that communication with those with those people who come into her, who've exhausted all their options and now this is their last resort.
Cross-training, yeah, I was just gonna say.
In the teeny county.
We're too big to be little and too little to be big.
Yep. No, in most of the counties, well, in the smaller counties, they do combine it.
Well, that is probably something that probably needs to be addressed.
I would address that for an FTE.
And I thought about my part-time person.
You can absorb it into your current budget, knock yourself out.
I
Once I get
FTE.
this person administering things and understanding what they need to do, if they could do just kind
There
of
we go.
down there with her.
Boom.
And then that way, worst case scenario, if Roxy were out, we'd have somebody to step in if we needed to.
Anything else come before the commission? Ross, anything? Nope. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Pfeiffer to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?